Maria, a 35-year-old woman, arrived at the emergency room in a distressing state. Her eyes were unfocused, and her movements were erratic, as if her body was being controlled by an external force. The atmosphere around her was chaotic. Healthcare professionals rushed around, trying to stabilize her, while her husband, visibly shaken, explained to the doctors what might have caused this sudden crisis. Earlier that afternoon, Maria had consumed an unusually large amount of chocolate, and now, her wild actions were a terrifying consequence of what seemed like an innocent indulgence. The sweet treat, meant to bring comfort, had turned into a source of deep anguish. Maria's husband recounted that in recent months, she had developed a peculiar habit. Whenever the stress from work became unbearable, she sought relief in consuming excessive amounts of chocolate. It wasn't unusual to find Maria late at night, sitting in front of the TV, surrounded by empty chocolate wrappers, as if each bite could alleviate the pressure she felt. However, what started as a simple comfort had quickly escalated into an unhealthy obsession, one that now had her lying on a hospital bed, fighting for control over her own body. The situation escalated rapidly that evening. What began as a simple headache quickly evolved into confusion and then into full-blown seizures. The doctors, listening to her husband's account, knew they were dealing with something more serious than just an upset stomach. The excessive consumption of chocolate had triggered a chain reaction in Maria's body, and now they needed to act quickly to prevent any lasting damage. The medical team immediately started running tests to understand the full extent of the impact on her system, setting the stage for a race against time to save her from the consequences of what should have been a harmless indulgence. As the medical team began to piece together Maria's medical history, it became clear that her chocolate consumption was more than just a harmless habit. Over the past few months, her life had become increasingly stressful. Long hours at work, coupled with mounting responsibilities at home, had pushed Maria to seek solace in food, particularly chocolate. It wasn't just the taste that comforted her, but the brief escape it provided from her overwhelming life. Each bar of chocolate was a momentary respite, a small reprieve from the constant pressure she faced. However, this routine had turned into a dangerous pattern, one that her body could no longer handle. Maria's husband, David, provided further insight into the events leading up to that fateful evening. He had noticed changes in her behavior over the past few weeks. Her moods were more erratic, and she often complained of feeling dizzy or lightheaded. He had attributed these symptoms to her stressful lifestyle, never suspecting that her fondness for chocolate could be the underlying cause. On the night of the incident, David had found Maria in the kitchen, surrounded by empty chocolate wrappers, her eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and desperation. She had consumed an alarming amount of chocolate in a short span of time, an act that would soon lead to dire consequences. The progression of Maria's symptoms was swift and unforgiving. What started as a mild headache quickly spiraled into confusion and disorientation. Her speech became slurred, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. Within minutes, she collapsed, her body convulsing in a violent seizure. David, in a panic, had rushed her to the hospital, not knowing that the very thing she sought comfort in had become a life-threatening poison. The doctors, now fully aware of the situation, knew they had to act fast. The chocolate, once a source of comfort, had triggered a cascade of physiological reactions, and time was running out to reverse the damage. Upon her arrival at the hospital, Maria's condition was critical. The medical team immediately conducted a thorough examination to assess her vitals and determine the severity of her situation. Her pulse was rapid, and her blood pressure was dangerously high. Her breathing was irregular, and she remained unconscious, her body still trembling slightly from the aftershocks of the seizure. The doctors noted that her pupils were dilated, a sign that her nervous system was under extreme stress. These initial observations painted a grim picture, and the urgency of the situation became even more apparent as the minutes ticked by. The first round of diagnostic tests confirmed the medical team's suspicions. Maria's blood glucose levels were alarmingly high, far beyond what could be considered safe. Additionally, toxicology reports revealed elevated levels of theobromine, a compound found in chocolate that can be toxic in large quantities. The combination of excessive sugar and theobromine had overwhelmed Maria's system, leading to the life-threatening symptoms she was now experiencing. The medical team quickly ruled out other potential causes, such as an underlying neurological condition, and focused their efforts on addressing the immediate dangers posed by the chocolate overdose. Faced with this critical information, the doctors began formulating a treatment plan. However, there were still unanswered questions that needed to be addressed. Was this merely an isolated incident? Or did Maria have a pre-existing condition that exacerbated her reaction to the chocolate? The possibility of an underlying metabolic disorder could not be ignored. The team needed to consider all possibilities to ensure that they were not missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. As they prepared to move forward with the necessary interventions, the gravity of Maria's condition weighed heavily on them. Every decision made in the next few hours would determine whether she would survive this unexpected crisis. The medical team knew that to fully understand what was happening inside Maria's body, they needed to delve into the complex physiological processes triggered by her excessive chocolate consumption. Theobromine, the compound identified in her blood, is similar to caffeine and can have a stimulating effect on the central nervous system. However, when ingested in large amounts, it can become a potent toxin. The theobromine and caffeine in the chocolate had overloaded Maria's nervous system, causing her brain to enter a state of hyperactivity, much like a power grid being overwhelmed by a sudden surge in electricity. To explain the situation to David, the doctors used a simple analogy. They described Maria's brain as a central electrical hub. Under normal circumstances, it handles the daily influx of signals efficiently, maintaining a delicate balance. But with the excessive consumption of chocolate, it was as if someone had plugged in too many high-powered devices at once. The system became overloaded, leading to short circuits, manifested as seizures and confusion. The excessive sugar only added fuel to the fire, disrupting the brain's chemical balance and exacerbating the already critical situation. As they continued to monitor Maria, the doctors explained that the situation was even more complicated due to the high-fat content in the chocolate. Fats can slow down the body's ability to metabolize theobromine and caffeine, meaning that these toxins could linger in Maria's system longer than expected. This delayed clearance was dangerous because it prolonged the time her brain remained in this hyperactive, toxic state. The challenge now was not only to stop the ongoing damage, but also to prevent any permanent harm to her nervous system. The team was racing against time to stabilize Maria and protect her brain from long-term effects that could alter her life forever. The emergency team quickly sprang into action, understanding that every second was crucial. The initial step was to stabilize Maria's condition and prevent any further seizures. The doctors administered anticonvulsants to calm her hyperactive nervous system, attempting to halt the electrical storm that raged in her brain. Simultaneously, they initiated a series of treatments to cleanse her body of the toxins. Intravenous fluids were pumped into her veins to help flush out the theobromine and caffeine, while her heart was closely monitored for any signs of irregularity, a potential side effect of the toxic overload. As Maria's condition remained precarious, the medical team faced a critical decision. Should they focus on treating the immediate symptoms, or was there a more insidious underlying cause that required attention given the severity of her reaction? The possibility of an undiagnosed metabolic disorder loomed large. Such a condition could mean that her body was inherently unable to process certain substances properly, making her much more vulnerable to toxins like theobromine. This dilemma placed the doctors in a challenging position, balancing the need for rapid intervention with the possibility that a deeper issue was at play. To address both concerns, the team opted for a dual approach. While the immediate focus remained on stabilizing Maria and reducing the toxin levels in her blood, they also began a series of specialized tests to explore the potential for a metabolic disorder. Genetic testing, enzyme analyses, and more comprehensive toxicology screens were all ordered. The goal was clear: not only to save Maria from the current crisis, but to ensure that they fully understood the reasons behind it, so they could prevent a recurrence in the future. The hours that followed were tense, with each test result potentially holding the key to Maria's recovery, or further complications that could shift the course of her treatment. As the night wore on, the medical team reviewed the results of the numerous tests they had conducted. The good news was that Maria's condition was slowly stabilizing. The anticonvulsants had managed to quell the seizures, and her vital signs were beginning to return to safer levels. However, the doctors knew they weren't out of the woods yet. While the immediate crisis had been managed, the long-term effects of the chocolate overdose were still uncertain. The prolonged exposure to high levels of theobromine and caffeine had undoubtedly placed significant stress on her brain and other vital organs. The results of the genetic and metabolic tests offered some insight, but also raised new concerns. Maria didn't appear to have a clear-cut metabolic disorder, but the tests revealed a slight enzyme deficiency that could have contributed to her severe reaction. This deficiency meant that her body was less efficient at metabolizing certain substances, including theobromine. While this condition wasn't typically life-threatening, it could make her more susceptible to toxins in certain situations. The doctors explained to David that while they had a better understanding of what had happened, they couldn't completely rule out the possibility of future complications. Looking ahead, the prognosis for Maria was mixed. The medical team was cautiously optimistic that she would make a full physical recovery, but they warned that there could be lingering effects on her nervous system. Memory issues, cognitive delays, or even recurrent seizures were all possibilities. Additionally, the psychological impact of this event couldn't be ignored. Maria would need ongoing support to manage the stress that had initially led her to overconsume chocolate. The team recommended a comprehensive rehabilitation plan, including neurological monitoring, dietary adjustments, and mental health counseling, to help Maria navigate the uncertain road ahead. As Maria began her slow journey to recovery, the aftermath of her ordeal extended far beyond the physical symptoms. The experience served as a stark reminder of the dangers hidden in everyday indulgences. What had initially seemed like a harmless comfort, chocolate, had become a near-fatal trigger due to a combination of stress, underlying health factors, and unrecognized risks. The medical team emphasized to Maria and David the importance of understanding one's limits and the potential consequences of seemingly benign habits, especially when compounded by stress and other health issues. In the weeks that followed, Maria's life underwent significant changes. She adopted a more balanced diet, cutting back on sugary and processed foods that could exacerbate her condition. David became an active partner in this transformation, ensuring their home was stocked with healthier options and encouraging Maria to find alternative ways to manage her stress. Together, they explored new hobbies and relaxation techniques that didn't involve food, helping Maria to break the cycle that had led to her crisis. The couple also attended counseling sessions, where they learned to communicate better about their stressors and how to support each other through challenging times. The case of Maria quickly became a topic of interest in the medical community. The unusual severity of her reaction to chocolate sparked discussions about the importance of recognizing and addressing stress-related eating habits, as well as the potential dangers of seemingly harmless substances in excessive quantities. The lessons learned from her case were incorporated into broader health education programs, highlighting the need for awareness around stress management, the impact of dietary choices, and the importance of personalized healthcare. Maria's story, once a private battle, had become a powerful tool for educating others about the hidden risks in everyday life and the importance of proactive health management. As Maria continued her recovery, the experience not only transformed her approach to health, but also reshaped her entire outlook on life. What began as a frightening encounter with a near-death experience had evolved into a period of profound personal growth. Maria realized that her dependency on chocolate was merely a symptom of deeper, unresolved issues. She began to see the incident as a wake-up call, urging her to address the root causes of her stress and to take control of her well-being in a more holistic way. Determined to turn her experience into something positive, Maria immersed herself in learning about nutrition, mental health, and stress management. She attended workshops, read extensively, and even began sharing her story with others who might be facing similar struggles. Her journey from the brink of a medical crisis to a newfound sense of balance and control became a source of inspiration for those around her. Maria also started advocating for better mental health support in the workplace, recognizing that much of her stress had stemmed from the pressures of her job. She became a voice for change, encouraging her colleagues and employers to prioritize well-being alongside productivity. Meanwhile, David stood by Maria every step of the way. Their relationship, which had been strained by the events leading up to the incident, grew stronger as they navigated this new chapter together. They learned to lean on each other in healthy ways, sharing responsibilities and finding joy in the small, everyday moments they had once overlooked. The ordeal had taught them both the value of life and the importance of nurturing their mental and physical health. With time, Maria's fears of recurring health issues began to fade, replaced by a newfound confidence in her ability to manage her health and well-being. She had emerged from the crisis not just as a survivor, but as a stronger, more self-aware individual, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Maria's case quickly became more than just a personal journey. It also sparked significant interest within the medical community. Her unusual and severe reaction to chocolate served as a case study in medical conferences and journals, highlighting the need for greater awareness of how common substances can have dangerous effects when combined with certain physiological conditions and stressors. Doctors and researchers began to explore the broader implications of Maria's experience, particularly the role that stress and dietary habits play in exacerbating underlying health issues. The medical team that treated Maria took the lead in developing new protocols for identifying and managing similar cases. They emphasized the importance of thorough patient history taking, including questions about dietary habits and stress levels, which are often overlooked in routine medical examinations. Maria's case underscored the need for a more integrated approach to healthcare, one that considers not just the immediate symptoms, but also the lifestyle factors that might be contributing to a patient's condition. This approach began to influence how other patients were assessed and treated, with a growing emphasis on preventative care and the management of stress-related conditions. In the academic world, Maria's case study became a teaching tool for medical students and professionals alike. It was used to illustrate the complex interplay between diet, stress, and health, as well as the importance of looking beyond the obvious when diagnosing a patient. The case also encouraged a broader discussion about the need for personalized medicine, recognizing that each patient's unique biology, lifestyle, and circumstances must be considered when developing treatment plans. As a result, Maria's story not only saved her own life, but also contributed to advances in medical practice, potentially saving many more lives in the future. I want to remind you not to forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you these important and inspiring stories. And don't miss out on the next chapter of our journey. Just click on the video appearing on your screen to watch the next story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.